Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning in late September here in suburban Chicago. I am out for a walk in between my two class Zooms today. So this is going to be a slightly shorter episode, but I don't have that much to talk about, but I did have a couple things, so I thought it would be fun to share some thinking with you. So as a follow-up to the episode from last time, I am doing another short report of some games I've played lately. That's right, second in a row. It's a shooting from the hip triple shot. On my short walk today, I'm going to give you my first impressions of 3 games I've played recently, 2 in person and 1 digitally. I also wanted to just reflect on a recent replay of one of my top 50 games. So we had a power outage on Friday. It was planned. There was some scheduled cutting of tree limbs, and the power company turned off our power for a big chunk of the day. So my children and I were hanging out without power, and my son asked if I wanted to play a game. I said, "You want to try something new?" And he said, "What's that? Dungeon Pets? That sounds fun." And I was like, "Well, let me show you, sir." And so we set it up, and actually the power came back on. So he had to go do his schoolwork. But during the setting up and the brief explanation at the beginning, he was intrigued enough that later he said, "Well, could we play that game another time?" And so Sunday morning, we set it up and we played a game of Dungeon Pets, which I was super excited to do because it's a game I really love. I don't get to play it that often, and getting him into a game like that was really cool. Dungeon Pets is a worker placement game where you are a group of goblins raising pets to be sold to dungeon lords who build evil dungeons and have adventurers come and go rampaging through them. That's kind of the weird premise. So there's an interesting mechanism where you're sending your workers to go to different spots, and the more workers you send, the higher in the player order you get to go. We had a good time. I only had one moment where my son's plans were really going to be foiled by mine, and I chose something else. I made a deal with him. I'm like, "I won't go there, but then you have to not do that." He's like, "Okay." And I ended up getting a pretty good score. Not my highest score ever, but pretty good. It was a fun time, and I think he'll play it again with me, which is even better. So that was a return to Dungeon Pets, not part of the triple shot, just a report of a gameplay that I enjoyed. So on to the shooting from the hip triple shot. My first impression, and this is the very briefest of first impressions, is of a game I tried out on Board Game Arena with a couple regular listeners, Jason and Wes. Hey fellas. This is Automobiles. It is a bag building game that is about car racing. I believe that the board game version is from AEG, part of their line of planes, trains, and automobiles line, which did not come out in that order. I think it came out trains, automobiles, then planes. And I believe planes is pretty poorly reviewed, but I'm not sure about that. Nonetheless, Automobiles is a bag building game where you have a race car and you buy cubes that represent different gears. And then each round you draw a certain number of those cubes out and use them to navigate around the track. Some of the cubes allow you to adjust the contents of your bag. And some cubes get added in that represent wear and tear on the car. And if you don't ameliorate those using other cubes, then you end up just continually drawing out the wear and tear cubes, and you can't get your car to go anywhere. So we're almost done with our second play of the game at this point. I'm really enjoying it. I'm hoping that it'll become part of a regular cycle in my plays. But overall, I'm interested in continuing. I don't know if it's a game I would be interested in buying a physical copy of, because my family doesn't have much interest in racing games, and racing games that are about car racing even less so. Nonetheless, an interesting game to play, and I'm looking forward to playing again if possible. That's Automobiles. All right, on to the 2 games that I've played in person. The first of these is one of the garage sale games that I bought. It's called Celestia. This game came out in 2016, I believe, and it was a re-implementation of a game. I think it was called Balloon Cup, maybe. That was a push your luck game. The premise is it loosely based around the journeys of Gulliver to the lands, Gulliver's travels to the lands he visits, and the places that he's able to see. In the game, you are a group of people riding on a sort of steampunky airship and traveling from mystical land to mystical land. The game is played over a series of rounds, and in each round you're trying to figure out whether or not the person who is running the ship is going to be able to move the ship to the next island or not. So the way it works is you have your pawns, and they all start in the ship on island number 1, and each island gets successively more valuable. I think there's 9 altogether. The last 3 are worth 15, 20, and 25 points if you get there. Each person has a hand of cards that over time gets smaller and smaller because you only get 1 new card per round. And there's between 2 and 4 dice being rolled to represent the threats on the journey from island to island. So at the beginning, the person who's the captain of the ship rolls 2 dice, and then they talk with the other passengers about whether or not they're going to be able to defeat the challenges that those dice represent using the cards they have. Then the passengers can decide, do they think the captain does or does not have the things they need to defeat those challenges. If they think the captain does have what they need, then they can stay on the ship and they go along to the next island. If they think the captain does not have what they need, then they jump off the ship and they take a treasure card from whatever island they got off at. Then the ship proceeds to the next island, and the captainship, the captainhood, the role of captain, transfers to the next player. So then the next player rolls dice and has to figure out whether or not they're able to proceed to the next island or not. As a push your luck game, it's pretty interesting. When you're the captain, you have to go to the next island, even if you can't make it there. So sometimes, if you don't want to get stuck crashing the ship, sometimes you'll jump off an island early because you know you don't have enough cards to likely be able to defeat the journey to the next island. By contrast, sometimes you think it's obvious the person should have enough. They have 4 or 5 cards, they're only rolling 2 dice, but the dice come up with symbols they don't have and they crash the ship anyway. As with most push your luck games that involve staying in or dropping out, if you're still in when the ship crashes, you don't get the things that you saved up. And if you have jumped out before that, then you do get those things. Overall, it's an interesting game. The artwork and gameplay elements are lovely, well crafted, and interesting. I bought it at the Fair Game Garage sale, which I mentioned previously, and I bought it because I thought that my children, particularly my son, would enjoy it. He really likes Dead Man's Draw, which is another push your luck style game that I think is pretty good, and he enjoys a lot. He also likes Perudo, which is a push your luck kind of game, and so I thought this would probably be right up his alley, and it turned out I was right. He really enjoyed Celestia. The playtime is about 20 minutes or less, and it's easy to learn. So all in all, it's an excellent little push your luck game if you have the opportunity to play it. That's Celestia. It's designed by Aaron Weisbaum, I had said earlier it was Balloon Cup. I was wrong. The previous game is called Cloud 9, so it's re-implementing a game called Cloud 9. And the publisher of that is Blam, which I'm not familiar with as a group. All right, so the third game I want to talk about is the worst of them, The third game I want to talk about is the newest of them. It is all the hotness, and this is Pendulum, the newest game from Stonemaier Games, designed by Travis P. Jones, with art by Robert Leask, and published by Stonemaier. Pendulum is a real-time worker placement game with fairly complex systems in which you are managing several different kinds of resources to move yourself up on 4 different tracks to try and have the best score on the tracks when the game ends. The game is played with 3 different timers, which indicate when you can move workers in and out of a certain area and when you can use the workers that you have previously placed in that area. The really tricky part of the game is that you can't you can only move workers in and out of an area during the time when you're not allowed to use that area, and vice versa. So it's a game of managing where your workers are and trying to find the best ways to use them to maximum effect. The game comes with a timer mode in which the timers jump back and forth with some regularity. The black timer moves every 45 seconds, the green timer every 2 minutes, the purple timer every 3 minutes. On top of that, they also have a non-timer mode where you move the timers back and forth, but they are not running. Instead, everybody takes as many actions as they want until they say they're done, and then you move the timers. It's a little less frantic that way. We played this 4-player using the non-timer mode. Going in, my thinking was that I thought it would be fun. I knew my daughter would enjoy it because she's an omni gamer and she likes lots and lots of games. I thought my wife probably wouldn't like it, but it struck me as the kind of game maybe she would, and I wanted to see what she thought. Well, like is not the word to describe what my wife thought of this game. Hate is probably a better word. We weren't even halfway through when she said, "I will never play this again." She really, really did not like the game, and we weren't using the real-time timers. By contrast, my daughter really enjoyed it. My friend Paul enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It just did not fit the kind of game that my wife usually likes to play, which I kind of suspected would be true, but I wanted to check it out anyway. I enjoyed the game quite a bit. I think once I've played a few times with the basic mode, it will be really fun to upgrade to the advanced mode. I think this is a game my daughter and I could really come to like and enjoy playing two-person against each other. I think it has a lot of potential as a fun game. The design is okay. It's not the prettiest game ever, in part because it needs to be really functional, and so the design had to be pretty scaled down. So it's very abstracted. The theme does not come through at all. You're really manipulating pieces around. Whether this game has a long-term position in my collection or not, I'm not sure. I definitely want to play it again. Like I said, I could see it being a game my daughter and I would enjoy, but I don't know how often we're going to play it. And given that we have lots of other games we like to play too, it might make more sense for me to try to flip it while it's still relatively new and expensive, see if there's someone else who would like it better, and then I can get something else that will get more play. So I haven't yet decided whether I'm going to keep it. But right now, I'm interested in playing it again, and my wife is not. The way the game actually works is that you are using workers to gain resources and then using those resources to buy either things that amplify the speed at which you get resources or to move yourself up these 3 different victory point tracks. Each character starts with a slightly different collection of skills that allow them to move the victory point tracks in slightly different ways, and in the end gain the results based on how you moved yourself in the victory point tracks. Overall, it's a pretty solid worker placement game. It would not be innovative if not for the timing mechanism, and the timing mechanism might be too much. I won't really know until I play it some more. But definitely interesting and unusual, which is more and more rare these days and something I'm really happy to have at my disposal as the thing I get to play. So that's my first play commentary on Pendulum from Stonemaier Games. Well, that's the second episode in a row in which I'm doing Shootin from the Hip triple shot. So there's 6 new games in the last 2 episodes for you to ponder. If you have commentary on any of those, please head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269, where I look forward to hearing what you think of those games. Have you played them? When? What do you think of them? Are you interested in playing them? And so on. I'd love to hear from you about those things. Otherwise, thank you for joining me today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.